Intermediate Algebra for Statistics. Multiplication of polynomial expressions and functions, Part 2. Lesson objectives: multiply polynomials, find product functions. We'll begin with two examples. The first example is a binomial times a binomial, and the second example is a product of three polynomials, one monomial and then two binomials. We'll begin with number one. Our first step is to take 2a squared times 4a squared, then take 2a squared times negative 3b squared. Next we're going to do the inner, which is negative 5b squared times 4a squared. Then last we're going to take negative 5b squared times negative 3b squared. So we have our first two terms, this one and this one. The outer terms, which is this term and this term. Inner terms. And then the last terms, last two terms of the binomial. 2a squared times 4a squared is 8a squared. Negative 2a squared times 3b squared. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. A squared times b squared is a squared b squared. Negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. B squared a squared is a squared b squared. And 5 times 3 is 15. B squared times b squared is b to the fourth. Combine like terms, negative a squared b squared plus a negative 20 a squared b squared is a negative 26 a squared b squared. And our final answer is the trinomial to the fourth degree, 8a to the fourth minus 26a squared b squared plus 15b to the fourth. Number 2, since this is multiplication, it doesn't matter which two polynomials you multiply first. I'm going to take this monomial and multiply it by this binomial first, and then take that binomial and multiply it by this binomial. So first I'm going to distribute the 4x times x squared plus 4x times 2. So 4x times x squared is 4x cubed. 4x times 2 is 8x. So we have this binomial times this binomial. So I'm going to distribute the 4x to the third. I'm going to multiply it by x, and then multiply it by the minus 3. Then I take the 8x times x, and the 8x times minus 3. This becomes 4x to the fourth, minus 4 times 3, which is 12, x cubed. 8x times x is 8x squared, minus 8x times 3 is 24x. Our next step is to make sure that there's no like terms, and all these terms have different degrees, so there is no like terms, and we are finished. We can verify this answer by using the graphing calculator. If we hit our y equals, type our original expression in y1, and then in y2 type in the polynomial that we got for our answer in y2, and then hit second graph, which is table, and you see the values for y1 is the same thing as the values of y2. So that means that this expression is equal to this expression. Example 6. Find the product 2x plus y times the trinomial 5x squared minus 3xy plus 4y squared. Number 2, we're going to take the trinomial x squared minus 3x plus 2 and multiply it by another trinomial x squared plus x minus 5. So for number 1, we distribute the 2x to every single term in the trinomial, and then we distribute the y to every single term in the trinomial. Next, we multiply. This will become 10x cubed. This will become negative 6x squared y. This term will be 8xy squared. This term will be 5x squared y. This term will be negative 3xy squared, and the last term will be 4y cubed. The next step, we want to scan each of these terms and see if there's any like terms. This is a x squared y, and we have an x squared y, so we can combine this one and this one. So negative 6 plus 5 becomes negative 1. So this will be negative x squared y. And then this term, 8xy squared, and this term, negative 3xy squared, we can combine these two. That will become 5xy squared. So our final answer is 10x to the third minus x squared y plus 5xy squared plus 4y cubed. Number 2. The first step is to distribute the x squared to each term in the second trinomial. Then distribute the negative 3x to each term in the second trinomial. And last, distribute the 2 to each term in the second trinomial. So we will have a total of 3, 6, 9 terms. X squared times x squared is x to the fourth. X squared times x is x cubed minus 5x squared minus 3x cubed minus 3x squared plus 15x plus 2x squared plus 2x minus 10. Our next step is to scan these 9 terms and see if there's any like terms. So we got an x cubed and an x cubed. We got an x squared and an x squared. We have an x and another x. Combining those terms, we get x to the fourth minus 2x cubed minus 6x squared plus 17x minus 10. We can verify this using the graphing calculator. We type in our original expression in y1, and in y2 we type in the polynomial. That's our final answer. Use the table feature and we see that y1 and y2 are the same, and this verifies the answer. This will be our last example, example 7. We have 3x minus y times the quantity 2x squared plus 4xy minus 5. So our first step is to take 3x times 2x squared next 3x times the second term for xy, 3x times the third term, now we have to distribute the negative y, so we're going to take negative y times 2x squared, so we have negative y times 2x squared, negative y times the second term, for xy, and lastly negative y times the last term, so a negative y times a negative 5, negative times negative is positive, so that's 5y. So next we multiply. 3x times 2x squared would be 3 times 2 is 6. X times x squared is x to the third. Plus 12. X times x is x squared. Times y. That's this term. The next term is negative 3x times 5, which is minus 15x. Next, negative 1 times 2 is negative 2, so that's a minus 2. We have an x squared and a y, so that'll become x squared y. Negative y times 4xy becomes a negative 4x y squared, and then our last term is plus 5y. So next we want to scan and see if there's any like terms. So for the x cubed, I'm going to use a circle. Is there any more x cubes? No. So this is finished. X squared y, I'm going to use a rectangle. X squared y, x squared y. So these two are like terms. So 12x squared y plus negative 2x squared y is 10x squared y. So next we have an x, we have a y, then we have an xy squared. So we'll just bring those down. So our final answer is a polynomial that has 5 terms. So this is a 2-variable polynomial with 5 terms. Thanks for watching.